In this video, I want to talk about the BluePrint SVG stack and how you prepare your SVG images for the stack, and then how we use the stack in RapidWeaver. So we're in a Affinity Designer document here. You can create SVGs in lots of different applications. The SVG output you get varies from application to application, but using this method you should be able to make it work with pretty much anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to export just this grid type logo, and if we there can go to the export menu. Now in Affinity they all work, but SVG for web is probably the simplest way to do it, and we want to just do the selection without the background, and you can see how tiny that is. It's 1.11 kilobytes. So let's just export that, and we'll call it as just something like BP logo. When we've got our SVG file, you can see it there. What you don't want to do is just try to drop that into RapidWeaver. We need to just edit it slightly. And in order to do that, you're going to need to edit it in a text editor of some sort. We're going to drop it into Sublime Text here. You can use Text Wrangler, anything you like really. But what we're trying to do here is get rid of everything at the start of the file before the SVG tag. So anything before this less than symbol and SVG we want to get rid of. So let's just delete that, and then we'll just resave that file. So this is the important bit. All you ever want to paste into this stack is something that starts with the SVG opening tag and ends with the SVG closing tag. And you can see the file itself is just a collection of paths and circles and things like that. We're going to copy this, and then we can get back to RapidWeaver, and we can simply drop a SVG stack onto the page, double click it, and let's just highlight that comment that says paste your SVG code here. We'll delete that and just paste in our code that we've just got, and there's our SVG straight away. Now you'll notice, first of all, we've got an edit mode control here, which will limit the size of the SVG in edit mode. In the case of this one, the actual view box, the size that we drew it in Affinity was 176 pixels, so even at 100% it won't get any bigger than that. But if you've got one that's drawn at 2000 pixels or something, you don't want it that big in edit mode. So you can just use this to just keep things neat in edit mode. Other than that, we've got pretty sort of standard responsive image controls, if you like responsive images that have got a lot of controls. So we've got 3 breakpoints. That means we've got 4 sizes that we can have this SVG. We've got small below 640, medium 640 to 768, and so on, all the way up to extra large. At each of these breakpoints we can change the size, the units of the size, and the alignment. So it's very flexible in terms of sizing and positioning. Now the other thing I'd say at this point is be careful if you're using percentage units. If you don't know what you're doing, your SVGs can get out of control. They don't behave as a responsive image would all the time. Percentage units are great if you're floating the image somewhere. They'll behave perfectly. Generally try to stick to absolute units like pixels or browser width if you want it to be responsively scaled. So that's a word of warning. If it goes mad, turn the percent units off if you don't know what you're doing. Other than that, we've got a couple of controls down the bottom to style it. We've got an opacity control. It's very nice for making sort of watermarks and things like that, and background SVGs that you want to just knock the opacity down a bit. The Chroma demo site had these in the headers, and they were just, I think, at opacity of about 13% or something. So it just sort of watermarked the header, and they were all floated at 100% width in a sections fix. Now we've also down here got a couple of recolor controls, and if we just copy and paste another instance of this stack. One of the great things about SVGs is that we can style them with CSS, which of course we can't do with images. So in the BluePrint demo, in the menu I've got a black or a very dark blue version of this, and then further down in the body of the document I've got the same icon, but it's on a dark background. So if we just put this in a blueprint stack, and let's just set a simple color background, and we want something to be quite a dark blue that doesn't give too much contrast. Okay, so that doesn't look great now. That's completely the wrong color combination. Now normally with PNGs you'd have to then export another PNG of a different color. Well, we can just recolor the strokes. The strokes are the lines, the fills are the inner part of circles and rectangles that you've drawn. So if we recolor the strokes instantly, we can make them black, we can make them white, we can do whatever we like. We can add a fill to it as well if we want, because that circle will have a fill property, so we can make it absolutely bright and garish if we want. And same code, just a bit of extra CSS applied to it. There is a float setting if you want to put an icon next to a header. So if we had a header in here and we want this icon, let's make it some sort of reasonable size. We'll just make it 48 pixels all the way down, and we might want to float this to the left of the header, so we'll just say float left, and then when we preview that, then that icon is now floated to the left of the header. It's quite useful for the sort of situations that you might use these. And that's all there is to it, really. So as long as you don't mind just deleting that first bit of code off the SVG, then it's a great flexible way to use SVGs. The alternative, of course, is to warehouse them as images. The trouble with that is it's another HTTP request. You've got to go to all the trouble of warehousing them. They won't be in your project. They won't go with the project. But more importantly, and the reason that I originally did this, was that I had a big SVG, big in size, not big in file size, in the header of the Blueprint project. And I didn't want any delay as the page loaded. So this way, all the SVG code is inline in the document. It's there as soon as the page is loaded, so there was never any delay in the image loading. Now, of course, that's fine with SVGs because each one of these we saw was just over 1 kilobyte in code, so it's very, very tiny. And again, don't put large graphics into SVGs, raster graphics. Keep it as lines and fills and paths, and if you use text, just convert them to curves and you'll get a nice small file size, and it becomes a very useful way to do it. So I hope that video has been useful. It's short and sweet, but there's not a lot to the stack, but it's something I've used a lot and it's very useful in the right situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.